Landlords, I'm going to share with you a system that will decrease your turnover, increase the renewals of great tenants, decrease your vacancy, and ultimately increase the monthly rent you get for your properties. This system is so easy to implement, but yet every landlord I talk to is doing it wrong or not doing it at all. And in fact, a lot of the professional property management companies that I talk to don't do this at all. And I don't know why, because this system has allowed me to have 0 unplanned vacancies on my portfolio of over 20 units for the last 6 years. That's right. For the last 6 years, I have yet to have an unplanned vacancy. Knock on wood. We're going to do it again in 2026. I'm going to teach you exactly how I do it. We're covering all that and more on your favorite channel, Investing in Bryan College Station, where I help you grow your wealth through real estate right here in Aggieland. If you don't know who I am, my name is Greg Schwartz. I started off my professional career as a Marine Corps helicopter pilot. But today I'm a full-time real estate agent and investor here with the Schwartz Realty Group, and we help clients just like you grow their wealth through real estate here in Aggieland. And today we're going to teach you how to do that through the correct way to run a renewal system in Bryan College Station. Stay tuned, it's going to be a good one. Today we're talking about renewing tenants. So you might be wondering, why is this so important? You just simply send a letter, hey, this is what your renewal rate will be. Do you want to stay or not? Well, we need to focus on 2 things. The amount in that renewal notice, aka how much will the new rent be? More important, we're going to focus on the timeline of that renewal notice. As I understand it, across most towns in the United States, the renewal notice is about 30 to 60 days out, meaning that a tenant only needs to let you know whether they're planning on renewing or moving out 30 to 60 days prior to the lease end date. Well, it's very different in college towns like here in Aggieland. In fact, it's not uncommon for the student apartment complexes to send out renewal notices in October for a July move-out. I'm going to break down for you the exact timeline that I use for my tenants that are both students and non-students. So I learned this as a property manager where I was managing a portfolio of over 150 units. And we would send out our renewal notices 150 days prior to the lease end date. So we're looking at about 5 months prior. We would then give the tenants 30 days to make a decision, because according to the lease that they signed, they are required to give us a notice of either renewal or non-renewal 120 days prior to the lease end date. Now, a little secret, a little pro tip is to have your leases end May, June, or July. That's when there's the highest demand for renters. It's also advantageous for your tenants because that's when there's the most properties available for sale and for lease. So it's a really good time to be moving both as a landlord and as a tenant. All right, side quest aside, let's talk about the timeline. So we said 150 days we send the renewal notice letter. Would you like to renew at this rate? By the way, your deadline is 120 days prior to the lease end date. This puts you somewhere in January or February based on our timeline. If they decide to renew, we send them a lease. If they decide to non-renew, we begin pre-leasing the property. And if they don't respond, it is written in that letter that not responding is the same as non-renewing. So if they don't get back to us before the 120-day mark, at the 120-day mark, we begin marketing the property. You can see how now I've got 4 months to fill that vacancy with a great tenant. That is the secret sauce in Bryan College Station. But there's more to it than that. All right, so we know the timeline, but we need to be smart about what the renewal rate will be that we send to the tenants. If the rate is too high, they'll non-renewal, we'll take on a vacancy. If the rate is too low, then we're leaving money on the table. Landlords that leave money on the table every single year turn around in 5 years and realize they've got a property rented out for $700 that should be making $1,000, and we don't want that. But we also don't want a vacancy. This is what I recommend. Step 1, determine what the market rent is. If you need help with that, if you need data, reach out to me. My email's down below, Schwartz Realty Group. We'll send you some data about rental comps in your area. Then find a happy medium between the market rent and the current rent. For example, if the unit's currently rented out for $1,000 a month and market rent is $1,200, maybe you send a renewal at $1,100. This is fair to you and the tenant. Because of course, when the tenant gets that renewal notice, that's exactly what they're gonna do. They're gonna go look at market rents. They're gonna look at the other options because nobody wants price increases. It is a factor of life because of course, everything is appreciating to include the landlord's property taxes, their insurance, things like that. So the tenant's gonna go, shoot, Rent's going up, let me see what else is out there. Oh, everything else is rented out at $1,200. They're renewing me at $11. I'm still saving $100 a month. Yep, I will happily renew with this great landlord. Sweet, no problem. Everybody's happy. You increase rents, win. They save money, win. Everybody wins. We go home happy. That's the end of the day. Everybody renews with you. Well, not always the case. Sometimes, despite the fact that you're saving them money, tenants will still push back. Sometimes they won't even do the research. They'll just call you up and go, hey, Mr. Landlord, you can't increase the rent on me. This is ridiculous. Fair enough. Now we're negotiating. I love this. Let's have a quick conversation with that tenant. Super calm and collective. You're going to ask that tenant if they know what the current market rent is. Ask them what they think you will rent that property for if they move out. If they don't know, you share with them very plain and clearly that number that you looked up. $1,200. You ask them if they feel like it's fair that you're saving them $100 a month. Usually they're going to scratch their head and go, hey, you're right. I appreciate the fact that my rent isn't pushed up all the way to $1,200. I appreciate the fairness that's involved here. Yes, I'll renew with you. Sometimes they're going to say, screw you. No, I don't want any rent increase. Despite the data that you provided, I want to renew at $1,000. Now you as the landlord need to know what your bottom dollar is. What is the minimum that you'll renew this tenant at? And that should be a factor based on two different variables. Variable one is the quality of the tenant. Are they a tenant that pays on time? Are they friendly? Do they put in maintenance requests? Are they friendly to your contractors? Do they keep the unit clean? If yes to all of those, then we're more willing to accept a lower renewal rate. I always recommend a slight increase, but hey, maybe we'll have more buffer on that if they're a great tenant. Now, if they pay late, if they're rude, if they're rude to your contractors, if the place is a pigsty and you have cockroaches, well, obviously we're gonna be less likely to wanna renew them. Renewal rate will be higher. There's some strategy in here. The other piece that factors into this is the cost of the vacancy. Now this gets a little bit tricky, but this is the math behind it. We want to look at how much rent we would make if we took on the vacancy and filled it with a great tenant. In this case, $1,200. Now we want to determine what is the expense that we're going to incur over the next year to get that new rental rate. And the expense is you're going to have a vacancy because of course there's going to be some time between the two tenants that you have it make ready, and you're going to have some turn cost, right? To send in the contractor to touch up the walls, things like that. For me in my business, that looks like 1 to 2 weeks of vacancy and $1,000 to $1,500 in turn cost. Let's assume in this case, $2,000 to get that unit rent ready. And of course the vacancy. So now we take that $2,000, we divide it by 12, right? 12 months in a year, leaves us with $166. So we could make $1,200, but we're taking on an additional expense of $166. 1,200 minus 166 leaves us with $1,034. So on a mathematical level, the minimum that you would accept is $1,034. Anything less than that, then you make more money taking on the vacancy, finding the new tenant. Anything more than that, and you're making more money keeping your current tenant in place. So again, let's go back to our scenario. They push back, they say, I don't want a rent increase. You know that that number is $1,034. You then determine whether or not they're a great tenant. If they are a great tenant, we might lower that down to $1,020 and negotiate that number. If they're not such a great tenant, then it might be $1,050. Either way, it's important to know your bottom number and to know whether or not you're going to allow that tenant to renew at a lower rate, or whether you have to ask them politely, hey, maybe it's not great that you stay in the apartment. If you choose a non-renew, we're not really all that heartbroken here in Bryan College Station because, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we have 4 months to pre-lease the property. Guys, that is the magic here. While we're negotiating with these tenants, we're not negotiating from a place of scarcity. We're not with our backs against the walls. We have the upper hand because if the tenant decides to non-renew, we have 4 months to fill the vacancy. You have, in this case, I would recommend renewal rates go out December or January, renewal deadlines January or February. You have March, April, May, and June to fill that vacancy, guys. That is the secret sauce of Bryan College Station. That's how you, as a real estate investor here in Aggieland, will maximize your ROI, and that in my opinion, is the huge leg up you have on investors who invest in any other town outside of college towns across the United States. So, that is the secret sauce. That is what I have for you guys for this video. That is the value I'm bringing you this week. Of course, I'm gonna bring a new video every single week with my intent of growing your wealth through real estate here in Bryan College Station. If you like that idea, then hit the subscribe button. If you liked this video and you like the content I'm putting out, hit the like button, because that motivates me to put out more content. And then if you do nothing else, until next week when I drop the next video, you take it easy.